Goblins, welcome back to another video on the wicked Kawasaki ZZR1400. Alright, now I know that a lot of you that own this bike use it for touring, but in today's video I'm going to give you kind of my take on that and why I don't think this motorcycle is very suited for touring whatsoever. And a plane's coming into land, that is awesome. Pretty quiet actually, that's a quiet plane. Just come overhead, that's wicked. But yeah, anyway, where was I? So why this motorcycle for me isn't exactly suited for touring, and why I pretty much can't get more than about 2 hours worth of riding in a single session, shall we say. All right, let's jump on. Let's go. Yeah, guys and gals, the ZZR1400. In the United States, this is regarded as the ZX-14 or ZX-14R, which is kind of like on par with their sport bike range, the ZX-10, the ZX-6 and the ZX-4, bikes like that. But does it really fit in those categories? Now I know that some of you in the past have said, and we've had this debate about, is ZZR a tourer, is it a sport bike? And you mentioned that, look, for insurance purposes, it makes sense to make this motorcycle a tourer because it makes them cheaper. And like, I'm like, that is so true. Touring bikes are definitely cheaper to insure than sport bikes. So it totally makes sense from that perspective. But I'm talking from a physical perspective, an actual riding experience perspective. And I did say recently in another video, I think it was on the ZX9, that how similar that feels, the ZX9, in terms of ergonomics, in terms of the riding position, in terms of the throttle response and everything else like that, how similar the ZX9R feels to the ZZR. And of course the ZX9 is the predecessor of the ZX10, so you kind of expect that this is how Kawasaki wants ergonomics to be on their sport bikes. God, these traffic lights are awful. And that's kind of what I mean here when I'm talking about touring, which is why this bike for me isn't built as a tourer. I find it too uncomfortable. The seating position is too aggressive, and despite the fact that this is a comfy motorcycle, I mean, no doubt there's a comfy bike. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, it is. The seat is insanely comfortable, and the position itself is actually a pretty nice place to be. But it is built for fun, pure fun factor, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, tourers can also be a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, sport tourers in particular, the Ninja 650. That's a really fun little bike, but it is certainly built more for touring than for sport, and more for, yeah, less for fun and more for long distance riding, just because you're sitting far more upright. The foot pegs are quite low down compared to this bike. But that's what I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, sport bikes are designed for fun, but you can't really ride them for any serious length of time. I suppose you can make a similar argument in cars as well. You get yourself a sports car, and they're not traditionally that comfortable, right? You wouldn't exactly want to drive around in them for, I don't know, hours and hours on end. A bit like what they do in Top Gear, or what they used to do in Top Gear, should I say. But they're a hell of a lot of fun nonetheless. You know, you drive them around, you blitz them around for a couple of hours or so, and it is one of the best experiences you'll ever have in a car. But same thing on a bike. Riding around one of these sport-oriented motorcycles, you're going to have so much fun, but it's going to be limited. One of the biggest reasons why, and I get criticized for this quite a lot, where I take my hand off the handlebar here and I have it resting on here, is because what I'm doing, because I'm out riding usually for 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours whenever I'm out on a shoot, my hand gets tired, my arms get tired. So I'm able to take some of the pressure off my hand, off both my arms, by simply just resting this one on the tank, and I can lean on it like this. And it's just a way to rest, pretty much, because as much as the seat is comfortable, for me the hardest thing to deal with about this motorcycle is the weight on your arms. Now, it's not a lot of weight on your arms, all right? I don't want anyone to think that I'm exaggerating here, all right? It's not a lot. It's not as much as what I've experienced in the past with other motorcycles, other sport bikes. Other sport bikes are far more aggressive. than this, and they have a lot more weight on your arms, without a doubt, for sure. You're going to have a lot more weight on your arms from other sport bikes than you would do on something like this. But the fact that you are still feeling that pressure on your arms is what makes it feel sporty. The higher foot pegs is what makes it feel sporty. Anyone that buys one of these bikes and they intend to do some touring with it, there are mods that they do to them immediately. They will get handlebar risers straight away to take the weight off the arms a little bit, make you sit a little bit more upright. They will lower the foot pegs, or at least get adjustable ones so they can get different experiences depending on what they want to do on the bike. If they want something a little bit sportier, they can set them to a higher foot placement or a lower one if they're doing longer rides. You know, but a lot of people do that. A lot of people. I've seen on YouTube as well other riders that own these bikes. Those are the mods they do almost immediately. And so, you know, you kind of think to yourself, well, if you've got to do mods on this to make it a touring bike or to make it tourable over anything longer than 2 hours for me, then, well, you got to think to yourself, it's not really designed for it. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with modifying this, because you've only got to modify it ever so slightly to make it into a fantastic touring bike. So the thing that you want in this is the engine. The engine is just a screamer. It is absolutely wicked. The engine in this thing is sick. The torque you've got on tap, the amount of power you get all the way through the range is just so addictive. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a fantastic place to be, and it's a fantastic experience. I know that this bike is a little bit dated now, especially when you compare it to other sport tourers in the market or other sport bikes in the market right now. But the experience that you get, pretty much, the thing that it does best is ride, and that's what you want, right? You want a motorcycle that rides really, really well, yeah? And that's exactly what this bike does. It still delivers in all the ways that matter. And look, we got a little wheelie there. Must be quite grippy on the roads today. Yeah, managed to pull a little wheelie. Awesome, absolutely awesome. Yeah, man, this thing is so sick. It's so fun. I mean, you got to be careful, because on roads like these you can get carried away quite easily, I think, on a bike like this. But that's all down to you as the rider, you know, how much control you have over the bike and how tempted you are to rag this thing around. You know, I like to be quite gentle with my bike, so I don't have the throttle pulled back 100% ever, pretty much, on bikes like this or the ZX2. ZX-14R, I give it the beans, because, well, it's an older bike and it deserves it. It deserves to be ridden hard. But you know what I'm trying to say. I try to be careful. I try to look after them and only have fun where it's probably safer to do so, on straight lines and things like that, straight roads. Because as soon as you start getting up to speed and you start trying to hit some bends in this thing, or any motorcycle for that matter, that's where you might start running into some trouble. But this motorcycle, I'm going to tell you right now, I did install handlebar risers. When I first bought it, I did install handlebar risers because I was so used to having that sport touring position where you're on a sport bike effectively, but you're sitting upright, like dead upright. There's no weight on your hands, no weight on your arms, anything like that. It's all really a nice place to be, nice comfy place to be. I wanted to install some, so I did. But I actually prefer the experience with them off. Yeah, so it really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. If you want a motorcycle like this, which I heavily recommend you at least try out at some point during your riding career, you try out a ZZR1400 or a Hayabusa for that matter. I mean, they are very, very similar experiences, but for me, you know, this takes the cake somewhat. But definitely give them a go and see what you think. If this is one of those motorcycles that gives you one hell of an experience, which it should do, because I mean this is one of the fastest and best motorcycles of all time, then you obviously do have the options of adjusting it, modifying ever so slightly. I'm not even kidding here. Like, if you decide to put handlebar risers on these handlebars, the brake fluid reservoir, it still has enough clearance so you can turn the handlebars full lock to lock on either side. It doesn't get in the way. So there's hardly any modifications that you any other modifications that you would need to do if you wanted to install handlebar risers, and I suspect it's a very similar picture with the foot pegs. If you did want to give yourself some lower foot pegs, it's going to be a doddle. It should be a really straightforward job to do. So yeah, that's the thing about this bike. That's what makes this bike so versatile, is that if you want the sportiest experience possible, the default setup is going to give you that. But if you did want a more relaxed setup, but you still want to experience the engine, the way how this bike performs, that's not a problem either. Literally, you spend 60, 70 quid on mods and yeah, you've got the perfect sports tourer in effect. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful motorcycle. Is it a CBR1400? No, it's not. It's a CBR650, I think. I can tell by the ergonomics are a bit more upright on the CBR650 from memory. It might be a CBR500, I don't know, off the top of my head. But yeah, what a machine! What a machine this is, man. This is so sick. Did you see that? It's an old bicycle, a bicentennial. What are they called? The bikes, the old bikes, 18th century bikes, where they got one big wheel at the front, a little wheel at the back. Oh, it's hilarious. I've never seen one of those in person. Wow, how funny. That guy's doing it as a joke, must be. Or a dare, or maybe he lost a bet or something, who knows. That is absolutely fantastic. Oh, anyway, everyone, that's my take on touring this bike. I personally, in its default configuration, would not tour with this bike. At least if you're going to go any longer than 2 hours, you have to take some breaks. I don't think you've got much of a choice there, because your arms are going to be hurting, your knees are probably going to be hurting, your back's probably going to be hurting after a couple of hours. Even your butt's going to be quite sore. But your butt is probably going to be like the comfiest it's ever been on a motorcycle if you ride this. Honestly, the seat is just brilliant, and it really annoys me that Kawasaki don't put these seats on anymore on their bikes. They're really, really nice. They seem to have really hard seats these days. Because even like on the ZH2, I could only ride the ZH2 for a limited number of hours before I need to rest because my butt starts hurting. You know, it's like riding on a bike, you know, a bicycle, a push bike, and for 2 hours and using the seat on one of those. That's pretty much what it feels like, unfortunately, on most of Kawasaki's mod motorcycles, which I'm not a fan of, to be honest. But of course, you can get mods for that as well if you want a more comfy butt. But yeah, so if you do want to tour on this motorcycle and you intend to do some really long distances on this bike, you intend to go from the south of the UK all the way to the Scottish Highlands, well, you're going to have to do some mods in my personal experience and in my personal opinion. But that shouldn't deter you from buying this bike whatsoever, because like I said, if that's what you intend to do, you can do some really simple things to really make it tourable. Anyway, there you have it, guys and gals. Let me know what you think. I know that there's a lot of you out there that own the ZZR, you have ridden the ZZR1400 in the past. So let me know your experiences with this bike. Did you make any touring modifications to this bike, or did you leave it as stock and just went to town all across the country? Because I know there are people out there that are like that. They'll just get a stock Fireblade and they'll travel all across the country on it. And I'm like, how do you do that, man? You've got to have bones of steel. You've got to have an adamantium skeleton, you know, to be able to do that. But that's just my opinion. That's just my riding style. Those are my riding habits. But you guys let me know down in the comment section what you think. And if there's any other touring mods that you could do to this motorcycle to make it even more tourable than it could be with the mods that I've mentioned today, let me know. God, I'd love to race this Tesla right now, but it's a Model 3. This bike should be able to beat the Tesla Model 3. And not to 60. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Teslas, to be honest. I don't really like them. I mean, the tech is absolutely fantastic in them, but I'm not really a fan of the way they look. They just look like family sedans, you know. So really fast family sedans, but yeah, not not for me really, the design of them at this moment in time. Thanks again everyone for joining me all the way to the end of this ride out. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a nice day today, despite the fact that it's getting cold now. Happy 5th of November as well. I'm out on the 5th of November shooting this one. But thanks again ever so much for watching. Take care, ride safe, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.